In a sterile San Francisco hospital room, a brilliant engineer was about to discover the ultimate betrayal. What started as emergency cardiac surgery took a shocking turn when they came face to face with a text message that would change everything. Elena Reyes wasn't your typical tech executive. For 3 years, she had spent her life building CredencePay's revolutionary financial infrastructure from scratch, known for her unbreakable encryption protocols and fierce loyalty to her vision. When she encountered Logan Vance's cold termination message while recovering from life-saving surgery, she had no idea she was walking into the fight of her professional life. Elena's response, a hidden kill switch she'd embedded deep in the system's core, would lead to the complete collapse of a billion-dollar IPO. What began as a routine medical procedure would become the catalyst for Silicon Valley's most spectacular corporate takedown. The fintech world would never be the same after Elena Reyes proved that the most dangerous person to cross isn't the one who built your empire. It's the one who holds the keys to destroy it. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The beeping came first. Slow, rhythmic, insistent. Then, the antiseptic smell, sharp and clean, cutting through the fog in my head like a blade. I tried to move my fingers. They felt heavy, disconnected, like they belonged to someone else. Surgery. The word floated back to me through the haze. Emergency surgery. My chest felt tight, banded. The cardiac arrhythmia had finally caught up with me after months of 18-hour days and too much caffeine. I blinked, trying to focus on the ceiling tiles above me. White squares with tiny holes, institutional and sterile. The IV in my arm tugged when I shifted. Everything felt muffled, like I was underwater. My phone, where was my phone? I turned my head slowly, scanning the small hospital room. There, on the bedside table, plugged into a charger I didn't remember connecting. Someone must have set it up. A nurse, maybe. With effort that surprised me, I reached for it. The screen lit up 3:47 p.m. I'd been out for 6 hours. 6 hours away from CredencePay during the most critical week of our IPO prep. The notifications hit me like a freight train. 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, emails flooding my inbox faster than I could count them. But it was the message at the top that stopped my heart. Logan Vance. 11:23 a.m. effective immediately. We're ending your contract. Details to follow. I stared at the screen, read it again. The words didn't change. My hands started shaking. Not from the anesthesia this time. I tried to call him back. The line went straight to voicemail. His professional greeting, smooth and confident as always. You've reached Logan Vance, CEO of CredencePay, COO. Not co-founder, not my business partner of 3 years, COO. I hung up and tried to access my company email. Access denied. My Slack workspace had been deactivated, even my admin access to our internal systems gone. Miss Reyes, a voice interrupted my spiraling thought. I looked up to see a man in scrubs, Asian, probably mid-40s, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. I'm Dr. Liu, your surgeon. How are you feeling? Like I just got fired via text message while unconscious, I said, my voice hoarser than expected. Liu's expression shifted. Concern creeping into his features. I'm sorry to hear that. But right now, I need you to focus on your recovery. Your heart went through significant stress. The arrhythmia was more severe than we initially thought. I nodded absently, still staring at my phone. Another message had come in while he was talking. Myra Kapoor, 3:52 p.m. Call me when you're somewhere safe, not here, not on company devices. Myra, my lead back-end engineer, the only person at CredencePay who'd stayed loyal through all the boardroom politics and power plays. If she was being cryptic, something was very wrong. Dr. Liu was saying something about rest and monitoring, but his words faded into background noise. I was already calculating. The IPO announcement was scheduled for next week. I'd spent the last 6 months preparing the technical infrastructure presentation for investors. Every line of code, every security protocol, every database schema, I'd built it all, and now they were cutting me out. Doctor, I interrupted. I need to ask you something. Hypothetically speaking, if someone had built something important, something that couldn't function without them, and they were betrayed by people they trusted, what would you do? Dr. Liu sat down in the chair beside my bed. His expression thoughtful. I'd say that person should focus on healing first, both physically and emotionally. Decisions made in pain rarely lead to good outcomes, and if waiting wasn't an option, he studied my face carefully. Then I'd say they should be very sure about what they're really fighting for. Revenge feels powerful, but it's hollow. Justice, on the other hand, he paused. Justice builds something better. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a news alert from TechCrunch. CredencePay prepares for blockbuster IPO amid executive restructuring. Executive restructuring, that's what they were calling it. I scrolled through the article, my blood pressure monitor starting to beep more rapidly. There it was, buried in the third paragraph. Sources close to the company report that recent strategic changes in leadership will streamline operations ahead of the public offering, with CEO Logan Vance taking full oversight of the technical architecture. My technical architecture, the system I'd designed from scratch in my apartment 3 years ago, the database infrastructure that now handled $3 billion in client transactions, the security protocols that had never been breached, not once. Nurse, Dr. Liu called to someone in the hallway. Can we get Ms. Reyes something for anxiety? Her vitals are spiking, but I wasn't anxious. For the first time in hours I was thinking clearly. I opened my laptop, the personal one I'd insisted on bringing, the one with access to systems Logan didn't even know existed. My fingers moved across the keyboard with muscle memory, navigating to a hidden directory I'd created 2 years ago. Protocol. Ghost flower. My insurance policy. The kill switch I'd hoped I'd never need. Dr. Liu was watching me with concern. Ms. Reyes, you really should rest. Doctor, I said, not looking up from the screen. How long do I need to stay here? At least 24 hours for observation, possibly 48 if. That's perfect. I saved my work and closed the laptop. That gives me exactly enough time. At 2 a.m., the hospital corridors were tomb quiet. The only sounds were the soft shuffle of nurses' shoes and the distant hum of medical equipment. I'd been awake for hours, my mind too sharp for sleep despite the pain medication. I opened my laptop again, this time connecting through a VPN that routed through 3 different countries. Old habits from my early days as a freelance security consultant. The video call connected on the second ring. Myra's face appeared on screen, her usual purple-streaked hair disheveled, dark circles under her eyes. Jesus. Elena, are you okay? I heard about the surgery from your emergency contact notification. I'm fine, or I will be. What happened after I collapsed? Myra glanced around her apartment, then leaned closer to her camera. Logan called an executive meeting 20 minutes after the ambulance left. He said you'd been under too much stress, that the company needed stable leadership going into the IPO, and by the end of the day, he'd rewritten the entire technical presentation. Your database architecture, he's calling it the Vance protocol now. Your security framework, the CredencePay proprietary system. Elena, he's erasing you from everything. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Show me. Myra's screen shared, revealing a presentation I'd never seen before. Slide after slide of my work, my innovations, my 3 years of 18-hour days. All credited to Logan and his vision for revolutionary fintech infrastructure. How is this legal? I asked. That's the thing. I don't think it is. Remember when you restructured your contract 6 months ago, you insisted on retaining IP rights to core architectural components. Logan agreed, because he thought it was just legal jargon. I smiled grimly. It wasn't. Elena, what are you going to do? I was already opening another window, navigating to an admin portal that existed in the shadow spaces of our system. I'd built it during the early days, when trust was higher but paranoia was still healthy. A backdoor that logged everything, tracked every change, monitored every access point. I'm going to see how deep this goes. My fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up logs from the last 48 hours. What I found made my chest tighten in a way that had nothing to do with my recent surgery. They hadn't just erased my name from presentations, they'd scrubbed me from the code documentation, the system architecture diagrams, even the internal wikis. 3 years of my digital fingerprints, system architecture diagrams, even the internal wikis. 3 years of my digital fingerprints, systematically deleted. But they'd made one crucial mistake. Myra, look at this. I shared my screen, pointing to a series of database modifications. They changed the attribution on the core encryption protocols, but they didn't change the backup systems. Holy shit. Elena, if you can prove, I can prove everything. I was already downloading files, creating encrypted copies of logs that would survive any attempt to delete them. But proving it and acting on it are two different things. A new notification popped up in my peripheral vision. An encrypted message from an address I recognized. Ava Santos, our legal and compliance analyst. Check your NDA clause. They violated it. I have documentation. I looked back at Myra's face on the video call. How much do you trust Ava? She's new, but she's sharp. And she's been asking a lot of pointed questions about the IP documentation for the IPO filing. I made a decision. Send her this meeting link. And Myra, make sure you're somewhere with good internet. I'm about to show you both something that Logan doesn't know exists. 20 minutes later, Ava joined our call. She looked professional even at 2:30 a.m., her dark hair pulled back, notepad ready. Miss Reyes, I'm glad you're okay. I need to tell you, the termination paperwork Logan filed has several irregularities. But first, I think you should know what they're planning to announce tomorrow. She shared her screen, revealing a draft press release. The headline made my blood run cold. CredencePay founder Logan Vance unveils revolutionary database technology ahead of IPO. Founder, singular. Elena, Ava continued. According to the incorporation documents I've reviewed, you're listed as a technical co-founder with specific IP protections. This announcement violates at least 3 clauses in your original agreement. I was quiet for a moment, absorbing the full scope of what Logan was attempting. It wasn't just career sabotage, it was theft on a massive scale. Ava, how familiar are you with system architecture? Basic understanding. Why? I opened another window, revealing something I'd never shown anyone. Not Myra, not Logan, not even our investors. A hidden directory labeled Ghost Administrative Protocols. Because I'm about to show you both something that could change everything, or destroy everything. I haven't decided which yet. Protocol Ghost Flower appeared on screen, elegant, deadly, and completely undetectable. Myra's eyes widened as she recognized some of the code patterns. Elena, is this what I think it is? A kill switch? I confirmed. Not for the data. I would never destroy client information. But for access. Every administrative credential, every API key, every authentication token. If I trigger this, the entire system becomes inaccessible to everyone except the person who built it. Which is you, Ava said quietly. Which is me. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of possibility hanging between us. Finally, Myra spoke. Elena, if you do this, I know the risks. But let me ask you something. They stole 3 years of my work, violated my contract, and planned to profit from my innovations, while pretending I never existed. What exactly do I have left to lose? Another long pause, then Ava's voice, steady and certain. Breeze, if you decide to move forward, I want you to know, I have copies of all the documentation proving your ownership of the core systems. Legal protection if you need it. And I helped build some of those authentication protocols. Myra added. If anyone asks, I have no idea how a system I helped create could possibly be compromised. I looked at both of them on my screen. These two women who barely knew each other but understood exactly what was at stake. I'm not making any decisions tonight, I said finally. But I want to run one test, just to make sure Ghost Flower still works. I navigated to the protocol's testing environment, a sandbox that mirrored our production systems, but contained no real client data. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. If this works, I'll have the power to take back everything they stole. The question is whether I should use it. I pressed enter. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then, systematically, every test credential expired, every administrative access revoked, every login token invalidated. The system was mine again, even if only in a sandbox. It works perfectly, I whispered. Dr. Liu had been right about one thing. Decisions made in pain rarely led to good outcomes. But this wasn't pain talking anymore. This was clarity. The morphine drip had been disconnected 12 hours ago, but I felt more alert than I had in months. Pain, it turned out, was clarifying. It burned away everything except what mattered most. I'd spent the morning reading. Not code this time. Specifically the 24,000-page incorporation agreement I'd signed 3 years ago when CredencePay was just an idea sketched on napkins in my apartment. Clause A. I'd insisted on it during the legal negotiations, back when Logan still needed my technical expertise more than I needed his business connection. It granted me perpetual ownership rights to any core architectural components developed independently prior to or during the initial product development phase. Logan had agreed because he thought it was standard founder protection language. He hadn't understood that I'd been developing the core encryption protocols for 6 months before I ever met him. My laptop chimed with an incoming call. Dr. Liu's name appeared on the screen, not the hospital's communication system, my personal video chat. Doctor, I answered surprised. Ms. Reyes, I hope you don't mind. I wanted to check on you outside of official rounds. Your stress levels have been concerning. His face appeared on screen, kind eyes studying me with the careful attention I'd come to appreciate. He was in what looked like a small office, probably at the hospital. I'm managing, I said. Are you? Because I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday. About justice versus revenge. I closed the contract files and gave him my full attention. And I've seen a lot of patients make critical decisions while recovering from trauma. Physical trauma, emotional trauma. They often go hand in hand. The ones who heal best are usually the ones who take time to understand the difference between reacting and responding. What if time isn't a luxury you have? Dr. Liu leaned back in his chair. Then you have to trust that the right choice will still be the right choice whether you make it today or next week. Elena, may I call you Elena? What you're contemplating isn't just about your former company, is it? The question caught me off guard. What do you mean? You mentioned building something important that couldn't function without you, but I suspect what really hurts isn't that they can't function without you. It's that they're pretending they never needed you at all. I felt something tighten in my chest that had nothing to do with my recent surgery. You're very perceptive for a heart surgeon. Hearts aren't just muscle and tissue, Elena. They're where we store our sense of worth, and when someone damages that, he paused, choosing his words carefully. Well, sometimes we think the only way to heal is to prove our power. And if that's true, then I'd say you've already proved your power by building something revolutionary. The question is, what do you want to build next? After we hung up, I sat staring at my reflection in the laptop screen. Dr. Liu was right about one thing. This wasn't just about CredencePay anymore. It was about 3 years of being undermined, sidelined and diminished. It was about every meeting where Logan dismissed my concerns, every presentation where he took credit for my innovations, every investor dinner where I was introduced as the technical talent, while he was the visionary founder. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister Hannah. Saw the TechCrunch article. Are you okay? Do you need me to come up there and throw hands? Despite everything, I smiled. Hannah was a high school art teacher with zero tolerance for Silicon Valley bullshit. She'd offered to handle Logan at least 3 times in the past year. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I'm fine, I texted back, just figuring some things out. Good. Stop letting people treat your kindness like weakness. Love you. My laptop chimed again. This time it was Myra, but her message came through an encrypted channel I'd never seen her use before. Elena, you need to see this. Logan is doing a live TV interview in an hour. Tech Today. He's going to announce the IPO date and demo his database architecture. I felt something shift inside me, like a lock tumbling into place. I opened Protocol Ghostflower and began making modifications. Not to destroy anything, I meant what I'd told Myra about never harming client data, but to reclaim what was mine. The protocol was elegant in its simplicity. It would encrypt all administrative access using a key that only I possessed, effectively locking out every other user while preserving all client information in a secure read-only state. The system would remain functional for clients, but completely inaccessible for internal operations. More importantly, it would leave a digital signature, my signature on every database table, every API endpoint, every encryption protocol, irrefutable proof of authorship. I added one final component, a delayed activation timer, 60 minutes from execution, giving me time to reconsider if Dr. Liu's advice about healing first, fighting second proved persuasive. But as I watched Logan's face appear on the live stream, confident, polished, explaining his revolutionary approach to financial data security, the timer suddenly felt unnecessary. I hovered my cursor over the execute button. If you try to heal and fight at once, you'll do neither well, Liu had warned, but maybe some wounds could only heal after justice was served. My phone buzzed one more time, a message from Ava. Logan just filed amended IPO documents. Your name has been completely removed. If you're going to act, Elena, now is the time. I looked at my reflection in the laptop screen one final time. The woman staring back at me had bandages across her chest and shadows under her eyes, but her hands were steady, and her mind was clear. I pressed execute. For exactly 60 seconds, nothing happened. Then across 3 server farms and 47 database clusters, every administrative credential that Logan Vance had ever used, quietly expired. The woman who had built CredencePay was taking it back. The knock came at 11:47 p.m., 3 soft taps that could have been a nurse checking vitals, but the rhythm was wrong, too deliberate, too careful. I closed my laptop and waited. After a moment, the door opened quietly, revealing Ava Santos with a manila folder tucked under her arm, and an expression I couldn't quite read. The night shift doesn't ask questions, she said by way of greeting, pulling the visitor chair closer to my bed. I told them I was delivering urgent legal documents for your review, which technically you are, which technically I am. She opened the folder, revealing a stack of papers that looked official enough to be intimidating. Elena, what I'm about to show you changes everything. The question is, do you want to know how badly they've screwed themselves, or would you prefer plausible deniability? I studied her face in the dim light filtering through the hospital window. Ava had been at CredencePay for only 6 months, hired specifically to handle IPO compliance. She was brilliant, methodical, and had no emotional attachment to the company's founding story, which made her the perfect person to see through Logan's carefully constructed narrative. Show me. She spread the documents across my bed table like a poker player, revealing a royal flush. First, your termination. Logan filed it as voluntary resignation due to health concerns, which violates about 12 different employment laws, since you never resigned. But that's not the interesting part. She pointed to a highlighted section. The interesting part is that he backdated the resignation to last Monday, before you collapsed. Which means, according to his own filing, you voluntarily quit while actively preparing the IPO presentation. That's impossible to prove, unless you have time-stamped emails showing you working on IPO materials after your supposed resignation date. She smiled grimly. Which I do. 47 of them. I felt a spark of something that might have been hope. What else? She pulled out another document, this one thick with legal language and corporate seals. The amended IPO prospectus, filed this morning. Logan lists himself as founder and chief technology officer, claiming sole authorship of the database architecture and security protocol. But the original incorporation documents list you as technical co-founder with specific IP protections. Yes. Which means Logan just committed securities fraud in a federal filing. She leaned back in her chair. Elena, he's not just stealing your work. He's lying to investors, the SEC, and potential shareholders about the fundamental ownership of the company's core technology. I stared at the documents, my mind racing through implications. How did you get all this? I'm the compliance officer. It's literally my job to review these filings for accuracy. She paused. Though I suspect I won't be employed much longer once Logan realizes what I've found. Ava, you could lose everything by helping me. I could lose everything by not helping you. She gathered the papers back into neat stacks. Do you know what happens to compliance officers who miss securities fraud and IPO filings? We don't just lose our jobs, we lose our licenses, our reputations, our careers. Logan put me in an impossible position. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text from Hannah. Flying up tomorrow morning. Don't make any major life decisions until I get there. I showed Ava the message. My sister. She teaches high school and has very strong opinions about bullies. Smart woman. Elena, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Are you planning to take action against Logan? I thought about Dr. Liu's words, about healing versus fighting, about the ghost flower protocol waiting dormant in my system. I'm considering my options. Good. Because if you do decide to act, you're going to need legal protection. And I've been thinking about how to provide it. She pulled out one final document, a formal whistleblower complaint. Partially filled. If you move forward with whatever you're planning, I'm filing this with the SEC within 24 hours. It documents every violation I've found, every falsified record, every fraudulent claim. It creates a legal framework that protects both of us. Both of us. Elena, I've been in compliance for 8 years. I've never seen securities fraud this blatant, this arrogant. Logan doesn't just think he can steal your work. He thinks he can rewrite history while federal regulators are watching. She stood up, tucking the folder under her arm. Some fights are worth having. After she left, I sat in the dark thinking about fractures. Not just in Logan's legal position, but in the careful facade he'd built around himself. The Golden Boy CEO, who'd transformed a brilliant engineer's innovation into a billion-dollar company. The visionary leader who'd guided CredencePay from startup to IPO. It was all a lie, and now there were documents to prove it. My phone rang. Hannah's name appeared on the screen, even though it was past midnight on the East Coast. Hey little sister. Don't little sister me. I've been reading about your company online. This Logan guy sounds like a complete, Hannah, sociopathic narcissist, who wouldn't know innovation if it bit him in his overprivileged ass. Despite everything, I laughed. Tell me how you really feel. I feel like you've been making excuses for people who don't deserve your loyalty for 3 years. And now you're lying in a hospital bed because the stress almost killed you. Her voice softened. Elena, you built something incredible. You know that, right? I'm starting to remember. Good. Because I looked up this database thing you created. I had to ask my computer science teacher friend to explain it to me, but holy shit. Elena, you didn't just build a product. You built the foundation for an entire industry. I closed my eyes, feeling something loosen in my chest. It's complicated, Han. No, it's not. They stole your work, fired you while you were unconscious, and now they're trying to pretend you never existed. The only complicated part is figuring out how to make them pay for it. The legal system. Fuck the legal system. Sometimes you have to take back what's yours. After we hung up, I opened my laptop and stared at the ghost flower protocol. 60 lines of code that could bring down everything Logan had built on my foundation. Not destructively, I'd been careful about that. But definitively, I thought about Liu's question. What did I want to build next? The answer was starting to become clear. But first I needed to reclaim what was already mine. I opened a new terminal window and began typing. Not modifications to Ghostflower that was already perfect. Instead, I started drafting something else entirely. A business plan for a new company. A technical architecture that would make CredencePay's system look like a toy. A vision for what financial technology could become when it wasn't constrained by ego and greed. I was going to build something better. But first, I was going to show Logan exactly what he'd lost. The discharge paperwork felt like a declaration of independence. Liu had insisted on one final conversation before I left, sitting across from me in his small office with morning light streaming through the window. Your heart is healing well, he said, reviewing my chart. But I'm concerned about the rest of you. The rest of me is fine. Elena, you've been working on your laptop for 16 hours a day while recovering from major surgery. That's not fine. That's driven. He set down the chart and looked at me directly. What are you building? I considered lying, giving him the polite deflection he probably expected. Instead, I told him the truth. Something that can't be stolen, and something that can't be destroyed. Especially something that can't be destroyed. Dr. Lou nodded slowly. My wife is an architect. She designs buildings that have to withstand earthquakes, hurricanes, fires. She always says the strongest structures aren't the ones that can't be damaged. They're the ones that can be damaged and still stand. What's your point? My point is that the strongest thing you can build isn't a system or a company. It's a reputation, and reputations are built on how you handle being damaged. I thought about his words during the drive home, watching San Francisco's skyline emerge through the morning fog. My apartment felt smaller than I remembered, though nothing had changed except my perspective. I set up my laptop at the kitchen table and opened 3 applications simultaneously: a secure messaging client, a business incorporation website, and a contact management system I hadn't touched in 2 years. The first message went to Andre Wyatt, a venture capitalist who'd passed on investing in CredencePay during our Series A, but had stayed in touch. His response came back within minutes. Heard about the surgery. How are you holding up? Better than expected, I typed back. Are you free for coffee tomorrow? I have something that might interest you. Always have time for brilliant engineers who've been screwed over by their business partners. 2 p.m. at Blue Bottle. I smiled. Andre had always been direct. The second application was more complex. I'd been thinking about business structure during my recovery, about how to build something that couldn't be stolen or undermined. The answer was elegantly simple: complete ownership. No co-founders, no board members who could be turned against me. No complicated equity structures that could be manipulated. I filed the incorporation papers for Verity Systems LLC, with myself as sole owner and president. The name was intentional. Verity meant truth, accuracy, authenticity, everything CredencePay had abandoned. The third application was the most important. I scrolled through my contact list, looking for names I'd collected over 3 years of client meetings and industry conferences: chief technology officers who'd expressed interest in our platform, enterprise security directors who'd praised my architecture, financial institutions that had been impressed by our capabilities but hadn't been ready to switch providers. I started with the smallest fish, a regional bank in Portland that had been using CredencePay for 6 months. Elena. The voice on the other end sounded surprised. I thought you were still with CredencePay. Recent change of circumstances. I said smoothly. I'm reaching out because I'm launching a new venture focused on next-generation financial security infrastructure. Given your experience with the current platform, I thought you might be interested in hearing about what's next. 30 minutes later, I had my first potential client meeting scheduled for next week. The second call went to a fintech startup in Austin that had been priced out of CredencePay's enterprise tier. The third to a credit union in Chicago that had been frustrated by Logan's dismissive attitude during their initial consultation. By the end of the day, I had 7 meetings scheduled and 3 companies asking for technical proposals. My phone rang as I was reviewing the notes from my calls. Myra's name appeared on the screen. Elena, thank God, things are completely fucked here. What happened? Logan tried to demo the database architecture on TechCrunch's live stream this morning, except he couldn't log into the admin panel. I could hear the barely contained laughter in her voice. He kept getting authentication errors, claiming it was a temporary network issue. The interviewer asked him to explain the core encryption methodology, and he started talking about proprietary algorithms and revolutionary blockchain integration. Blockchain integration? Our system doesn't use blockchain anywhere. Not a single component. The interviewer knew it, the audience knew it, and Logan just kept digging deeper. Myra paused. Elena, what did you do? I reclaimed what was mine. Well, you reclaimed it so thoroughly that the entire C-suite is in emergency meetings. They're trying to figure out how to restore admin access without admitting they don't understand their own system. I felt a surge of satisfaction, followed quickly by something that might have been guilt. Our clients affected? Not at all. All client-facing systems are running perfectly. It's just internal operations that are locked out. We can see the data, but we can't modify anything. Can't run reports. Can't even access the user management interface. Good. That was intentional. Elena, they're going to figure out it was you eventually. Let them. I have documentation proving my ownership of the core architecture. And as of this morning, I have legal protection. I told her about Ava's whistleblower complaint, about the securities fraud Logan had committed in the IPO filing. Myra was quiet for a long moment. So what happens now? Now I build something better. Something that can't be stolen, can't be undermined, and can't be destroyed by people who confuse ownership with leadership. And us? The people still stuck here? I'd been thinking about that question all day. Myra, how would you feel about being the CTO of a company that actually values its technical talent? Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you a partnership. Equal equity, equal decision-making, equal recognition. Everything CredencePay should have been. Another long pause. Elena, I've been waiting 3 years for you to realize your own worth. Yes. Absolutely yes. After we hung up, I opened my laptop and began working on the technical specifications for Verity Systems. Not an evolution of CredencePay's architecture. A complete reimagining. Faster, more secure, more scalable and built on principles of transparency and authentic ownership. As I worked, I thought Dr. Liu's words about reputation being built on how you handle being damaged. Logan had damaged me, certainly, but in trying to erase me, he'd forced me to remember who I was beneath the compromises and accommodations. I wasn't just Elena Reyes, the brilliant engineer who'd been pushed aside. I was Elena Reyes, the woman who'd built something revolutionary and was about to do it again. Only this time, nobody could take it away. The TechCrunch interview was scheduled for 9 a.m. Pacific. I watched it from my kitchen table, coffee growing cold as Logan's face filled my laptop screen. He looked confident, polished, every inch the successful CEO about to take his company public. Logan, let's talk about the technical architecture that's made CredencePay so successful, the interviewer said. Can you walk us through the core innovations that set your platform apart? Absolutely, sir. What we've developed is a revolutionary approach to financial data security that combines next-generation encryption with proprietary blockchain integration. I nearly choked on my coffee. Blockchain integration. In a system that had never used blockchain technology for anything, and the result is a database architecture that's both incredibly secure and infinitely scalable. We're processing over $1 billion in transactions daily with zero security breaches. The interviewer nodded. That's impressive. Can you show us how the system works? Logan's smile never wavered. Of course, let me just pull up our admin interface. I leaned forward, watching him type into what I recognized as the primary administrative portal. The login screen appeared, clean and familiar. Logan entered his credentials with practiced confidence. Access denied. That's odd, he said, trying again. Must be a network issue. Access denied. Let me try a different approach, Logan said, his smile tightening slightly. He opened a secondary admin panel, one I'd designed for backup access. Same result. Logan, are you having technical difficulties? The interviewer asked. Just a temporary connectivity issue. You know how it is with live demonstrations. He was starting to sweat now, tiny beads forming at his hairline. Let me explain the architecture while we troubleshoot this. Actually, let's stick with the demo. Our viewers love seeing the technology in action. Logan tried 3 more administrative interfaces, each one returning the same polite rejection. I watched him cycle through increasingly obscure access points, his composure cracking with each failure. Logan, I have to ask, do you actually have access to your own system? Of course I have access. I designed this architecture personally, every encryption protocol, every security layer, Then why can't you log in? The silence stretched for several seconds. Logan's face had gone pale, sweat now visible on camera. I think we're experiencing a sophisticated cyber attack. Someone is trying to compromise our systems during this interview. I nearly laughed out loud. Even in crisis, Logan's first instinct was to blame someone else. A cyber attack that only affects administrative access, but leaves client systems running perfectly. The interviewer's tone had shifted from friendly to skeptical. That seems oddly specific. Our security protocols are designed to protect client data above all else, Logan said, scrambling for an explanation. The attack is being contained to non-essential systems, but surely the CEO of a financial technology company would have some way to access his own administrative system. Logan's jaw tightened. I'm not going to compromise our security architecture on live television just to satisfy curiosity, of course not. But maybe you could explain the technical details instead. Earlier you mentioned blockchain integration. Can you walk us through how that works? I saw the news about CredencePay's technical difficulties. Not at all, and yes, I'm fine. I figured you would be. I wanted to ask you something. Yesterday you said you were building something that couldn't be stolen. Did you mean the system? Or did you mean yourself? I thought about the question as I watched the city wake up below me. Both, I think. But mostly myself. Good. That's the strongest foundation you can build on. He was right. Logan had tried to steal my work, but he'd failed to understand something fundamental. The technology wasn't the valuable part. I was the valuable part. The mind that had conceived it, the hands that had built it, the vision that had made it possible. And I was just getting started. The cease and desist letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, delivered by a courier who looked apologetic about the whole thing. 47 pages of legal threats, accusations and demands that I immediately restore access to proprietary CredencePay system. I was sitting in my new office, a converted warehouse space in Soma that Andre had helped me secure, when Ava called. Elena, please tell me you're sitting down. I'm sitting. What's happening? Logan's legal team just made the biggest mistake of their career. I could hear papers rustling in the background. They filed a federal lawsuit claiming you've stolen proprietary technology and committed corporate sabotage, and that's a mistake, because they had to list the specific technologies you allegedly stole. And every single item on that list is covered by your IP protection clause from the original incorporation agreement. She laughed. Actually laughed. Elena, they just filed a federal lawsuit admitting that you're the architect of their entire platform. I set down my coffee and opened my laptop. Send me everything. Already in your encrypted folder. But Elena, there's more. I've been digging through their internal communications since the TechCrunch disaster. Logan's investors are getting nervous. Very nervous. How nervous? 3 of the Series B investors have requested emergency board meetings. The IPO underwriters are demanding technical audits. And this is the best part. 2 enterprise clients have already started asking about alternative providers. I felt something that might have been satisfaction, but it was tempered by something else. Ova, what's your employment status? Officially, I'm still CredencePay's compliance officer. Unofficially, I'm documenting every violation of securities law, employment law, and basic human decency that happens in that building. She paused. Elena, I need you to know I'm not doing this just for you. I'm doing this because what Logan did was wrong. Systematically, deliberately wrong. What do you mean? I mean, I've been going through 3 years of internal communications, board minutes, and financial records. This isn't the first time Logan has pushed out a technical co-founder. There was someone named Marcus Chen, who left voluntarily right before the series. A woman named Sarah Rodriguez, who had a family emergency that required her immediate resignation during the Series B negotiations. My blood went cold. Are you saying? I'm saying Logan has a pattern of bringing in brilliant engineers, letting them build something incredible, then manufacturing reasons to force them out before major funding rounds or liquidity events. You're not his first victim, Elaine. You're just the first one with enough evidence to fight back. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my new office, processing what she'd told me. Logan wasn't just a bad business partner, he was a predator who systematically exploited technical talent. He'd been getting away with it for years. My phone buzzed with a text from Hannah, Saw the news about the lawsuit. Are you okay? I called her back immediately. Elena, thank God. I was worried they were going to try to destroy you. But they don't understand what they're fighting. What do you mean? Han, remember when we were kids and you'd get into fights with bullies at school? You never won by being louder or meaner than them. You won by being smarter, by knowing something they did. And what do you know that Logan doesn't? I know exactly how the system works. Every line of code, every security protocol, every integration point. Logan is trying to fight me using technology I designed. It's like challenging an architect to a duel inside a building she constructed. So what happens now? Now I do something Logan isn't expecting. I stay quiet. Elena, that doesn't sound like you. It's exactly like me. The best defense against a liar isn't to argue with them. It's to let them keep talking until they contradict themselves into a corner. I was right. Over the next week, Logan did 3 more interviews, each one more disastrous than the last. He claimed the system lockout was a temporary security measure. Then he claimed it was a planned maintenance window. Then he claimed it was evidence of industrial espionage by disgruntled former employees. Meanwhile, I worked. Myra had officially joined Verity Systems as CTO, and we spent 16-hour days building something that would make CredencePay's architecture look like a prototype. We weren't just creating a better database, we were reimagining what financial technology could be when it was designed by people who understood both the code and the human cost of getting it wrong. The first client meeting was with Pacific Community Bank, a regional institution that had been frustrated by CredencePay's rigid pricing structure. Their CTO, a woman named Janet Kim, listened to our presentation with the focused attention of someone who'd been burned before. "This is impressive," she said when we finished. "But I have to ask, how do we know you won't just disappear like your previous company?" "Because this isn't my previous company," I said. "This is my company. I own it completely. I control it completely. And I'm not going anywhere. And if Logan Vance tries to claim ownership of this technology too, he can try, but he'd have to prove he understands it first. And as we've seen, that's not his strong suit." Janet smiled. "When can we start the integration process?" By the end of the week, we had our first signed contract, $2.3 million over 3 years, with performance bonuses that could double the value. More importantly, we had proof that clients were ready to leave CredencePay for something better. The second client meeting was even easier. Northwest Credit Union had been on CredencePay's waitlist for 8 months, unable to afford the enterprise tier pricing. We offered them the same functionality for 40% less, with dedicated support and customization options. Logan had never bothered to provide. "Reyes," their CFO said as we wrapped up the meeting, "can I ask you something personal?" "Of course. Are you doing this for revenge?" I thought about the question carefully. 6 months ago, I might have said yes, but now, I'm doing this because I finally remembered what I'm actually good at. It turns out revenge is a terrible motivator. Excellence is much better. That evening, I was reviewing contract details when my phone rang. Andre Wyatt's name appeared on the screen. "Elena, I have some news. Are you somewhere private?" "I'm in my office. What's happening?" "Logan's lead investor just called me. Apparently, they've been trying to hire external consultants to restore administrative access to their systems. No one can figure out how to do it. And they want to know if I can put them in touch with the engineer who originally designed the architecture." Andre paused. "Elena, they're asking me to broker a meeting between you and Logan. They want to negotiate." I was quiet for a long moment, thinking about what Lou had said about the strongest structures being the ones that could be damaged and still stand. "What did you tell them?" "I told them I'd pass along the message. But Elena, you should know, they're desperate, which means you have all the leverage." "Good. Set up the meeting. But I want it in my office, on my terms, and I want Myra and Ava there as witnesses." "Are you sure you want to face him?" "I'm sure. It's time Logan learned the difference between building something and stealing it." The meeting was scheduled for Thursday at 2. I spent the morning preparing, not by rehearsing what I'd say to Logan, but by reviewing the technical specifications for our next client integration. Whatever happened in the next few hours, I had work to do. "Myra, arrived first, carrying 2 cups of coffee and a tablet loaded with system metrics. Elena, you know you don't have to do this, right? We could just let them twist in the wind. We could, but I want to see his face when he realizes what he actually lost. Ava came next, wheeling a small suitcase that I suspected contained enough documentation to bury CredencePay's entire executive team. She looked calm, professional, and slightly predatory, exactly the kind of person you wanted on your side in a legal fight. Elena, before they arrive, I need you to know something. The SEC has opened a formal investigation into CredencePay's IPO filing, securities fraud, investor misrepresentation, and potential violations of multiple employment laws. How long until it becomes public? Probably 2 weeks, maybe less, she smiled grimly. I may have accidentally expedited the process by providing some very detailed documentation. Logan arrived at exactly 2 p.m., accompanied by a woman I didn't recognize, and a man who looked like he'd stepped off the cover of Legal Shark's month. He looked smaller somehow, less commanding than I remembered. The expensive suit couldn't hide the fact that he was operating from a position of desperation. Ilana, he nodded toward me, then glanced around the office. Nice space, very minimal. Logan, I didn't stand up or offer handshakes. I understand you're having some technical difficulties. We're having some unusual system behavior that we'd like to resolve quickly and quietly. He sat down across from me, flanked by his lawyer and the woman I now realized was probably a crisis management consultant. I think we can come to a mutually beneficial arrangement. I'm listening. First, we need you to restore administrative access to the CredencePay systems. In exchange, we're prepared to offer you a consulting fee of $500,000 and a favorable settlement of any potential legal disputes. I looked at Myra, who was trying not to laugh. Then at Ava, who was taking notes with the focused intensity of someone building a case. Logan, do you understand what you're asking me to do? I'm asking you to unlock systems that you've maliciously compromised. I'm asking you to explain why the CEO of a technology company can't access his own systems. The lawyer leaned forward. Ms. Reyes, our client is prepared to be generous in this negotiation, but we need to resolve this situation quickly. The longer these systems remain compromised, the more damages we'll be forced to seek. Damages? I almost laughed. You're going to sue me for damages because your client can't log into systems he claims to have designed. Ilana, Logan said, his voice taking on the patronizing tone I remembered from 100 meetings. I know you're upset about the termination, but this is bigger than personal grievances. We have responsibilities to our clients, our investors, our employees. Responsibilities. I leaned back in my chair. Logan, can you tell me what encryption protocol the client authentication system uses? I don't see how technical details. Can you tell me which server farm hosts the primary database cluster? Ilana, I'm not here to take a quiz. Can you tell me what happens if someone tries to access the system with invalid credentials more than 3 times? This is ridiculous. I opened my laptop and turned it toward him. This is the administrative interface you've been trying to access. I'm going to log in now, and I want you to watch carefully. I entered my credentials, the same ones I'd used to build the system 3 years ago. The interface opened immediately, displaying real-time metrics from every component Logan had been locked out of. Now, I said, I want you to log in using your credentials. Logan's face went pale. I don't have my passwords memorized. Try. He typed something into the login screen. Access denied. He tried again. Access denied. A third time. The system locked him out for 24 hours. Logan, I said quietly, you can't access these systems because you never built them. You can't restore functionality because you don't understand how they work. You can't even explain the basic architecture because you've never bothered to learn it. I hired you to build those systems. You hired me as a co-founder. You gave me equity. You signed agreements granting me ownership of the intellectual property I developed. And then you tried to steal it. The crisis management consultant whispered something to Logan, who shook his head stubbornly. Elena, what do you want? I want you to understand something. For 3 years I let you take credit for my work because I thought we were building something together. I let you diminish my contributions because I thought loyalty mattered more than recognition. I let you push me out of decision-making because I thought the company was more important than my ego. I stood up and walked to the window overlooking the city. But you made a mistake, Logan. You fired me while I was unconscious. You tried to erase me from the company I built. You committed securities fraud to steal my intellectual property. And in doing all of that, you reminded me of something I'd forgotten. What's that? I don't need CredencePay. CredencePay needs me. I turned back to face him. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to withdraw your lawsuit. You're going to correct your IPO filing to accurately reflect my role in developing the platform. You're going to publicly acknowledge that I was the chief architect of your technology. And if I don't, then you'll spend the next 5 years trying to rebuild a system you don't understand, while I build something better with the clients who are already leaving you. Ava spoke up for the first time. Miss Vance, you should also know that the SEC investigation will be proceeding regardless of what happens in this room. The securities fraud charges are based on federal filings, not personal disputes. Logan's lawyer was whispering urgently in his ear. After a moment, Logan nodded grimly. Fine, we'll withdraw the lawsuit. But I want a non-disclosure agreement. None of this gets discussed publicly. No, Elena, be reasonable. Logan, I'm done being reasonable. I'm done being accommodating. I'm done pretending that your failures are my responsibility. I sat back down and looked him directly in the eye. The NDA you want? That's the same silence that let you steal from 3 other engineers before me. I'm not going to help you do it again. Other engineers? Marcus Chen, Sarah Rodriguez. Should I keep going? Logan's face went white. The lawyer started gathering papers, clearly realizing this meeting was over. Elena, Logan said as they prepared to leave, you're making a mistake. You could have had everything. The money, the recognition, the success. Instead, you're choosing to burn it all down. Logan, you still don't understand. I didn't burn anything down. I just stopped pretending you built it. After they left, Myra shook her head in amazement. Elena, I've never seen anyone dismantle a person so thoroughly without raising their voice. That's because I wasn't angry. I said anger would have been a waste of energy. I was just telling the truth. Ava closed her briefcase and smiled. Elena, I have some news. 3 more CredencePay clients have reached out to me asking about alternative provider. Apparently word is getting around that there's a new player in the market. And Pacific Community Bank has been telling everyone who'll listen that their new system is revolutionary. Janet Kim specifically mentioned that it was designed by the engineer who actually knows what she's doing. I looked out the window at the city sprawling below us. Somewhere out there, Logan was probably trying to figure out how to rebuild his company without the person who'd made it possible in the first place. You know what the funny thing is? I said, I could have unlocked those systems for him. It would have taken me about 30 seconds. Why didn't you? Because some lessons can only be learned the hard way. And Logan's lesson is that you can't steal talent. You can only borrow it until the person you're stealing from decides to take it back. 6 weeks after the meeting with Logan, I was reviewing quarterly projections when Myra knocked on my office door. Elena, you need to see that. She handed me her tablet, which was displaying a TechCrunch article with the headline, CredencePay IPO delayed indefinitely amid technical and legal challenges. The article was brutal. It detailed the system lockouts, the failed technical demonstrations, the SEC investigation, and most damaging of all, interviews with former employees who corroborated the pattern of pushing out technical co-founder. Marcus Chen went on record, Myra said, settling into the chair across from my desk. He said Logan did the exact same thing to him, built up his contributions, then systematically erased them before the Series A. And Sarah Rodriguez, she's considering legal action. Apparently Logan claimed sole ownership of a machine learning algorithm she developed. She's been working at a startup in Portland, but she kept all her documentation. I closed the tablet and looked out the window. The San Francisco skyline looked different now, less intimidating, more full of possibility. How many clients have we signed this month? 7, including 2 that left CredencePay specifically to work with us. Myra grinned. Elena, we're processing $47 million in transactions daily. We're not just competing with CredencePay anymore. We're beating them. And our team, 12 engineers, 3 security specialists, and a customer success manager who poached half of CredencePay's client relationships. She paused. Elena, you know what this means, right? What? You've built something bigger than what you lost, and you did it in less than 3 months. I thought about that as I walked home that evening. In trying to steal my work, Logan had forced me to remember what I was truly capable of. He'd inadvertently given me the greatest gift possible, the freedom to build something entirely my own. My phone rang as I reached my apartment. Hannah's name appeared on the screen. Hey, big sister, I saw the news about your old company. How are you feeling? Honestly, I feel like I finally woke up from a 3-year nap. Good, because I have something for you. I could hear paper rustling in the background. I've been working on a piece for the school's art auction, and I wanted to run the concept by you. What is it? A series of paintings called Invisible Architects. It's about women who build things that other people take credit for. The centerpiece is called The Engineer's Revenge, and it shows a woman walking away from a burning building while carrying the blueprints. Despite everything, I laughed. Hannah, you can't call it The Engineer's Revenge. Why not? Because it wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. Even better, The Engineer's Reclamation it is. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment thinking about the difference between those 2 words. Revenge was about punishment, about making someone pay for what they'd done. Reclamation was about taking back what had always been yours. I opened my laptop and pulled up the Verity Systems client dashboard. 12 enterprise clients, each one choosing us not because we were cheaper or more convenient, but because we were better. Because we understood that technology was about solving problems, not just generating profits. My phone chimed with a text from Ava. 6 investigation concluded. CredencePay agreed to settlement. Details are confidential, but Logan is no longer CEO. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back. Good. What's next for you? Funny you should ask. I've been thinking about joining a company that actually values compliance and ethics. Know anyone who might be hiring? I smiled. Come in Monday. We'll talk. The next morning I was in the office early, reviewing resumes for our growing team. We were looking for senior engineers, but I'd made one requirement non-negotiable. Every candidate had to have a story about being overlooked, undervalued, or pushed aside by someone who didn't understand their work. I wasn't just building a company, I was building a refuge for people who'd been told they weren't good enough, smart enough, or important enough. People who'd been treated as replaceable when they were actually irreplaceable. Myra arrived at 8 a.m. with coffee and a stack of technical specifications. Elena, I have news. Good news and great news. Give me the good news first. We just got approached by Zenith Financial. They want to migrate their entire customer base to our platform. It's a 2-year contract worth $12 million. I nearly dropped my coffee. And the great news? They specifically said they chose us because they'd heard about the engineer who built the CredencePay system and then built something even better. Elena, you're not just taking market share from Logan, you're taking his reputation too. I looked around the office at the engineers working on problems they found genuinely interesting, at the client success team that actually cared about client success, at the walls covered with technical diagrams that belonged to the people who'd drawn them. You know what the best part is, I said. What? I don't have to share credit with anyone who doesn't deserve it. Every innovation, every breakthrough, every success, it belongs to the people who actually created it. My phone rang. Andre Wyatt's name appeared on the screen. Elena, I'm calling with an update on your Series A planning. Are you sitting down? I'm sitting. What's the number? $15 million. Pre-money valuation of $60 million. 3 firms are competing for the lead position. I was quiet for a moment, processing the magnitude of what he'd just said. Andre? 6 months ago I was lying in a hospital bed, fired via text message. Now you're telling me I'm building something worth $60 million. Elena, I'm telling you that you've always been building something worth $60 million. The only difference is now you're keeping it for yourself. After we hung up, I walked to the window and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, Logan was probably trying to rebuild what he'd lost, but he'd never be able to rebuild what he'd never really owned in the first place. I thought about Dr. Liu's words about the strongest structures being the ones that could be damaged and still stand. Logan had tried to damage me, but he'd only revealed how strong I'd always been. The intercom buzzed. Elena, your 2 p.m. is here. Janet Kim from Pacific Community Bank. Send her in. Janet entered with a smile that suggested good news. Elena, I wanted to deliver this update in person. Since we switched to Verity systems, our transaction processing time has improved by 37%. Our security ratings have gone up 2 levels, and our customer satisfaction scores are the highest they've been in 5 years. That's wonderful, Jan. But I suspect that's not why you're here. You're right. I'm here because I've been telling everyone who'll listen about what you've built. And now I have 5 other banks asking if I can introduce them to you. I smiled. I'd be happy to meet with them. But first, can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you choose us? Really? Janet was quiet for a moment. Because when I met with CredencePay, I felt like I was being sold to. When I met with you, I felt like I was being listened to. After she left, I sat in my office, thinking about the ripple effects of authenticity. Every client who chose us would tell others. Every engineer who joined us would become a reference point for their next opportunity. Every success would create space for more success. I wasn't just building a company, I was building a movement, and it was just getting started. The appointment was scheduled for 3 p.m. on a Tuesday, exactly 6 months after my surgery. I sat in Dr. Liu's office, watching him review my latest cardiac results with the same careful attention he'd shown during my recovery. Your heart is completely healthy, he said, closing the file. Better than healthy, actually. Your stress indicators are the lowest I've seen in any tech executive. That's because I'm not a tech executive anymore. I'm just an engineer who happens to run a company. Dr. Liu smiled. How does that feel? Like I finally remembered who I am. He leaned back in his chair, studying me with those kind eyes that had seen me at my most vulnerable. Elena, can I ask you something? That first day after your surgery, when you were working on your laptop, were you planning revenge? I thought about the question carefully. I was planning justice, I just didn't know the difference yet. And now I know that revenge is about the past, justice is about the future. After leaving the hospital, I drove to the Verity Systems office. The space had transformed over the past 6 months. What had once been an empty warehouse was now home to 37 employees, 3 server rooms and a client success team that actually knew their clients' names. Myra met me at the entrance, practically bouncing with excitement. Elena, you need to see this. She led me to the main conference room, where the entire team was gathered around a large monitor displaying real-time system metrics. The numbers were staggering: $247 million in daily transaction volume, 97% uptime, 0 security breaches. We just passed CredencePay's peak transaction volume, Myra announced, and we did it with half their infrastructure costs. The room erupted in applause. I looked around at the faces of people who'd chosen to build something meaningful rather than just profitable. Engineers who'd left big tech companies for the chance to work on problems they cared about. Client success managers who measured their worth by client satisfaction, not just revenue. There's something else, Myra said, pulling up another screen. We got a call from TechCrunch. They want to do a feature story about the engineer who built Silicon Valley's most ethical fintech company. What did you tell them? I told them you'd consider it, but only if they also interview the entire technical team. No single genius narrative, just the truth about what happens when talented people are treated with respect. I nodded. That felt right. Later that evening, I was in my apartment when Hannah called. Elena, I have news. My Invisible Architects series just got picked up by a gallery in Soma. They want to display it next month. That's incredible, Han. What's the opening like? It's called Reclamation Stories of Women Who Built the Future. And Elena, they want you to speak at the opening. About what? About the difference between being erased and choosing to disappear. About what it means to build something that can't be stolen. I looked out my window at the city lights, thinking about all the brilliant women who'd been pushed aside, written out of history, or forced to watch others take credit for their innovation. How many of them had never gotten the chance to reclaim what was theirs? I'll do it, I said. The next morning, I opened my laptop and navigated to the Ghost Flower protocol for the last time. With a few keystrokes, I deleted it completely. I didn't need a kill switch anymore. I had something better. I had a company that belonged entirely to the people who'd built it. On my desk I placed a small framed quote I'd written myself. I wasn't cut loose, I let go. Because sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't holding on, it's knowing when to build something better from scratch. Outside my window, San Francisco stretched toward the horizon, full of brilliant minds and impossible dreams. And for the first time in years, I felt like I belonged to all of it. The future was wide open, and it belonged to anyone brave enough to build it. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell, so you don't miss any upload from us.